Dear guests and dear panelists, welcome to the panel 2. Our topic is how to build sustainable business in post-COVID world. This is the worry what concerns most of us. There have been many studies about COVID period, the lessons, how it influenced our businesses, but less studies how the situation is influencing defense industry. But we have ongoing operations in different conflict areas, troops on the ground. We have to support our troops 24/7. So, and as defense industry, as global business, we are all related here through our supply chains, to our marketing and sales channels. We're taking the more closer view how this is influencing our today's business, but our main focus is how to get over from this and what can be our approach, strategies, lessons after this COVID period, how to overcome this situation. So, and now I'd like to give a word for introduction to His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Mishal Al Saud. I'd like to give word you to Royal Highness now to make a short introduction to our panel.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm Prince Abdulaziz, okay, a new partner with our friend and Prince Mishal. This is my first time to be online with you, and I would like to welcome everybody, and I will give the speech to Prince to complete exactly what we'd like to negotiate this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the word to our partner in Saudi Arabia, His Highness Prince Mishal bin Fahad Al Faisal Al Saud. Prince Mishal, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Stan. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Prince Abdulaziz. And good afternoon, everybody. I will speak in my mother language, in Arabic, my letter. لقد استحوذ مرض كورونا المتجدد أو المستجد 2019 على اهتمام العالم، وتسبب في الكثير من القلق والاضطراب، حيث أن أثرها انسحب على كل القطاعات في جميع أرجاء المعمورة، ومعظم الأعمال قد تعرضت لصفحات قوية من الكساد، وبما في ذلك صناعات الدفاع على مستوى العالم. وصناعة الدفاع هي نشاط عالمي والجميع مرتبط به، حتى ولو كنا ننتمي لمناطق وأقاليم مختلفة.
So partnering with Stan Raymond and his defense industry companies in Europe on current COVID disease is a concern that affects every sector today in the world. Most of the businesses are under hit, including the global defense industry. Defense industry is a global business, and it is all interrelated and interconnected, even though the sectors are located in different regions.
وتعتبر المملكة العربية السعودية من أكبر الدول في العالم إنفاقاً على الدفاع، حيث أنها تنفق 60 بليون دولار أمريكي، وهو ما يعادل نسبة 8% من الناتج القومي الإجمالي في العام 2019. من شركائنا الأساسيين في قطاع الدفاع هم الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية وأوروبا، وبعد الولايات المتحدة تعتبر الدول الأعضاء في الاتحاد الأوروبي هم الموردين الأساسيون على وجه الخصوص. وعلى وجه الخصوص المملكة المتحدة وفرنسا، وقد ساهم مصدر الأسلحة الأوروبية في تحديث القوات الجوية والبرية والبحرية السعودية العربية.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has one of the biggest defense spending in the world, with well over 60 billion of USD annually, which is approximately amounts to 8% of our kingdom GDP as of 2019. Our key partners in the defense sector are US and Europe. After the United States, EU member states are the main suppliers, with the UK and France in particularly. European arms exports have been contributing greatly to the modernization of Saudi Arabia's air, land, and naval forces.
بسبب انتشار فيروس كورونا المستجد لقد تأثرت علاقاتنا بشراكاتنا مع الدول الأوروبية والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية من ناحية تسليم المعدات وسلسلة التوريد والإنتاج وغيرها من النواحي الأخرى.
As a consequence of the COVID situation, our connections with our European and US partners are affected and challenged with the delivery of the equipments, supply chains, and productions.
في العديد من الدول فإن الحكومات بصورة أو بأخرى تدعم قطاع صناعة الدفاع وتختلف إجراءات وسياسات الدول من دولة إلى دولة أخرى. وفي نفس الوقت نجد أن العمليات العسكرية مستمرة وتبرز إلى حيز الوجود تهديدات جديدة للدول والشعوب، والقوات تحتاج إلى تزويد المنتجات وخدمات صناعات الدفاع، ومعظم التحديات تنعكس على القطاع بنفس الطريقة بالرغم من أنه قد نعمل في أجزاء مختلفة من العالم.
In many countries, governments are more or less supportive to the sector. Support measures and policies are different, though. At the same time, military operations are ongoing, and new threats to the country and to the people are rising, and troops need to be supplied uninterruptedly with the industry products and services. Most of the challenges are reflecting to the sector in a similar way, even though we might operate in different parts of the world, as said before.
من الأفضل أن نتبادل الخبرات ونتطلع إلى المستقبل سويا، وسوف نتخطى هذه الفترة العصيبة. في كثير من الأحيان المصاعب توحد الناس وكذلك المؤسسات الأمنية وفرص العمل للوصول إلى استراتيجيات ذكية، وسوف نكون أقوى إن شاء الله من ذي قبل.
This calls for a better exchange of the experiences and looking for the future together. We will overcome this difficult period regardless, but often difficulties can unite people and also our security concerns and business opportunities, making smart conclusions, and we will be stronger than before. We need to look further post-COVID period of 21 and 22 and way beyond that timing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prince Michel. Thank you very much, Your Highness. Thank you for the kind word, and I'm sure that together here we are stronger. And as you mentioned, if the supply chains are interrupted, then we have to communicate better. Even we cannot travel, but we can meet each other through the different communications. Thank you. And we will continue with our panel now. And I'd like to give the word to Mr. Mansour Al-Harabi. Mr. Mansour is our good partner in Riyadh and running the defense and aerospace sector in AIC, and at the same time also currently chairman of Advanced Arabian Simulation Company. Mr. Mansour, can you give your view?
Yes,
from different geography?
Thank you, Stan. Good morning, everybody, again. First, I would like to say that I would like to thank the Estonian Defence Industry Association for the invitation. I'm very glad and very deeply honored to join you today. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we will see this immediately.
As per the subject of this panel, my presentation will cover the major factor that helps in sustaining a business in general, with a little bit focus on defense. Next, can you please put the next slide? With the pandemic's outbreak, almost all industries has been impacted to a different degree, of course. The impact on the defense sector, from what we have seen, is, I would say, less severe. This is mainly because of many points. One, the nature of the defense programs are usually long-term and resilient by nature. The defense program are, as you know, of strategic importance and have an impact on national security. So all governments are expected to continue with their defense program and also expected to continue in defense spending. Keeping in mind always that is there will always be a pressure for rationalization of spending, efficiency, and cost reduction. Having said that, that doesn't mean the defense sector is immune from impact. And that's why I think companies should always continue monitoring their impact, continue looking at their risk profile to sustain the business. Next, please. So these are, in my opinion, the major 6 factors that help in sustaining business, and then something related to the defense and more something related to our part of the world, as we will see. So the factors that I'm going to talk about today include the technology, strategy, financial, people, supply chain, and localization. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yes, technology, 3 aspects I would like to discuss. One is very obvious, and I think everybody realizes this now, that is companies need to have a very robust infrastructure and tools to support their operation and collaboration, remote working for their employees first, but also with customers, partners, and suppliers. So this is very important to have a very robust and strong platform, utilizing all the tools that the company need for collaboration, whether internally or externally. Of course, the cybersecurity is very important. So you have to have a very strong security system to protect your infrastructure and company. The second aspect is related more to the operation of the company, especially for manufacturing and MRO. I believe that modernization, the manufacturing process through automation, smart manufacturing, in using new technology such as artificial intelligence, 3D printing, and so on, will help to contribute to reduce the cost and efficiency, which is a major factor. Has been always a major factor to reduce costs, but now specifically with the pressure on the budgets and the priorities, I think it's more important now. The last part, and maybe the most important for me, is companies really need to invest in their development of their product and solutions. And this is how you create your own IP, where you can reduce the reliance and dependence on foreign suppliers, which also will help in reducing the impact for supply chain. Of course, there is no, in our industry and in many other industries, there is no total independency, but at least in my opinion, owning the IP give you more flexibility to find always new suppliers and new ways, so not to interrupt your supply chain. The second factor is supply chain, and I think perhaps this is the biggest impact we have seen for this year since the beginning of the pandemic. As you know, defense programs are very complex, usually involve large number of suppliers, different tiers of suppliers for systems, subsystems, components, and also services. So it goes without saying that it is extremely important to manage your supply chain. I would like to highlight two dimensions here. One is, I think, is strategic and to some extent long-term, which is basically to, as a company or defense company, as a leader in the market, you have to always support and contribute to developing the local supply chain. Again, for the same reasons we talked about, to really they can support you during crisis, and also you can start always with the critical components and expand it in stages. The other one is your normal supply chain. You need to strengthen your alliance with your current network, try to expand it, develop plans, contingency planning, periodic plans with your suppliers so they can support you during crisis. And we have many examples that we have seen this year where doing such thing actually help us go over many steps. As you may know, part of what we do is we manufacture defense electronics, so having that kind of relationship actually help us a lot in managing our schedules and maintaining our manufacturing continuity, and this is proven to be very, very effective. Can we get next slide, Spear? Localization and building indigenous capability. This is, as you may know, this is a very important subject in I think in the region and in Saudi Arabia, and it is a very important subject for me personally. I don't know how much you know about AEC, but since the beginning of AEC in 1988, our main focus was basically building a local capability and through technology transfers and other means to have an existing capability so we can support our defense. So just to give you a little background, as you know, Saudi Arabia is going through a major transformation in all aspects of life. This is driven by the Kingdom Vision 2030, led by the custodian of the two holy mosques and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Minister of Defense, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Specifically for defense, the Saudi vision calls for localization of 50% of the military procurement by 2030. This presents a huge opportunity for the Saudi defense industry. Of course, it will be with a challenge. It's a very aggressive goal, but we all believe in that it is achievable and can be done. So, as I said, I am a big believer of building an indigenous capability specifically for defense, because, as I said before, it's very strategic and involves national security, and this, in my opinion, can be done through two ways. One is the investment in R&D and development for products and solutions and services. The second one is through the normal technology transfer in collaboration with the international OEMs. In this aspect, I believe the government support is fundamental through one, allocating funds for R&D and development, and also mandating the technology transfer and localization in the defense acquisitions. And as you may know, again, this is part of the Saudi vision. It's one of the pillars of the Saudi vision, and Saudi government has already taken steps to achieve that. The next factor is people. It goes without saying that people are the most valuable assets in any organization. The first one is you have to make sure that you protect your people, and this is through having very clear policies and procedure, very good communication and management oversight to make sure your staff are protected and can perform the work. The second way is adapting to the future or the new way of working, which I believe this pandemic helps actually accelerating. It's existed before, but now I think I can see it accelerating. As you may know, that there are many jobs today that can be done remotely, which gives the organization an option to hire for work packages versus full-time employment. And this allows also you to have the best in market, the best in industry for specific function or subject. And I think this model can be proven to be an efficient and cost-effective with the proper, of course, HR and legal arrangement. As you know, defense industry is highly regulated through export control regulations, ITAR regulation, and security classification. So it is very important that the companies take care of this into consideration when considering short-term or remote employment. Next, please. Financials, as you know, cash is what keeps company running. So close management of cash and working capital is fundamental for sustaining the business. And this is from my experience. I mean, I think AC, we have done extremely well in this area, and it helped us a lot to maintain our business. Parallel to that, as I mentioned before, you always have to look at ways to reduce cost and to remain competitive. The last and not least is strategy. I think is one of the panelists is in strategy. So, in my opinion, strategic planning has always been important, but has a specific importance now and days to come. And the key thing in my opinion, is agility. That is being able to respond to your customers and market requirement quickly and efficiently. I know it's for defense, it's typically not easy because of the size of the defense programs and the complexity, but I think it's very important to be able to maybe alter your operation model or your even business model, finding always a new business lines to be in line with the customer demands and requirement. And to do that is you really need a very strong strategy analyst and management team. because strategy is not always putting some headlights. It's usually backed by a lot of data analysis and forecasting and scenario buildings and so on. So this is very critical, in my opinion, in the next phase. Next. So in conclusion, I just would like to emphasize the following. I mean, defense industry has an inherent resilience. However, it's not immune to impact. Managing working capital and cash is crucial to sustain the business. Agility and fast response to customer requirement. Building indigenous capability through innovation and also localization is a key success factor. Continuous monitoring and management of risk and contingency planning is very important. And of course, finally, management and expansion of your supply chain. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you, and back to you, Stan.
Thank you, Mansour. Thank you very much. So unfortunately, we see that regardless the geographical position, the problems are very similar. Now, yes. Markus, you have been in Eckensor now last 13 years. So what we can call here a medium-sized company. I know you are doing well in your very specific sector and have quite wide client base all around the world, and especially regarding NATO member countries, EU countries, and now also much wider. Can you please open your view, how you see this lessons from COVID and how to move forward after this period?
Well, thank you very much, Sten, for letting Eckensor participate in this very important conference. And of course, I also want to thank the Defence Association industry in Estonia. You're right, Eckensor is as an SME. We are a company based in Sweden and the UK. We're about 50 people, which means that in a situation like this with the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to be flexible and agile. And I would like to share a few thoughts about how COVID-19 has affected us as a company and how we have come through this period over the last 6 to 8 months, and also some of my thoughts about the future. So I know that there has been a lot of obviously negative impacts due to COVID-19, and of course it has caused a lot of anxiety and in mobility and problems in the society. But I would like to focus on the positive impact that actually COVID-19 has had on the way we work and how we can change to mitigate these kind of crises. So if I look at our side, when the pandemic hit and we had to rechange and change our way of working, we actually noticed that we got things done that would never have happened before. An example, for example, I mean, we're a small company, so we don't have full functions for all different things we want to do in a company. But one thing we managed to do in a very short time now is to release our new homepage. And even though that's maybe not something related to our products in itself, it's really a way to refocus our resources when we're not able to travel and put more energy into to be more visible on the internet, which of course is one of the things that we need to focus on for the future. Another very specific thing that happened was obviously we had a situation with a customer who wanted us to come and showcase our solutions live, which, as you know, is obviously difficult. And we had to make a very quick decision in less than 1 week to see how we could show our products one way or another live for this specific customer. And in a week, we managed to produce a complete video in where we were able to introduce our product and show it live. And we've also been able to demonstrate our products in live scenarios using obviously all the different tools available in the market. So that is typically how we've had to adapt quickly to adapt to the current situation. So I think that's a little bit an example on how we've had to find new ways. If we look at the business impact for us this year, I would say, and I think I share this with other companies and SMEs in the sector, that is that we have been able to keep our business quite stable, actually. We are forecasting to have a stable revenue and order intake this year, which is good, and we've managed to do that. Of course, there has been some slight delays on decisions related to the fact that people can't meet. Some decisions are delayed as you know, meetings are postponed, etc., etc. But we think that is going to recover in not too far future. If we look at some other things that we've managed to clear is that, of course, during COVID-19, we've had to adapt also how we work and how we produce things. We are having quite a small production site, but it's very efficient. And during COVID-19, we've adapted ourselves by including shifts. We have been able to get in co-contractors to help us to support our production, and in the end we've managed to deliver on time and according to customers' expectations, which I think is a very good result out of our small organization. I would say the negative impact we see, of course, like everybody else during the pandemic, is that all new opportunities that we have forecasted for new markets have been standing a little bit still. We have not been able to meet customers face to face. And yes, some of the meetings can take place through internet and through these kind of meetings, but I would say that the problem is that some of the things that you can only say face to face, that will never be said. So yes, we've seen a limited reach out on new opportunities. So I mean, the message is really we miss to face our customers in real life. If I just should say a few words about how we foresee the future, and I'm now talking, I would say, 22 and onwards. I think definitely that traveling will be reduced in the future. It's a little bit in line with what has happened. Of course, now we haven't been able to travel. I think once the pandemic goes back or disappears, whether it will disappear completely, we don't know, but I think there will be a boom effect immediately after, with people that need to go out and meet customers, and also in the private sector, of course, people want to go out and travel and meet other people. But once that's over, I think the traveling activities is going to be reduced somewhat, and we need to find ways to mitigate that and use new tools to meet and face our customers. So to some extent, travel expenses is probably going to be reduced a little bit in the future, but on the other side, I think our marketing activities needs to go up. The other sector, which was also touched here in the speech before, is the localization, and I think and I see the tendency that during a pandemic like this, within specifically the defense and security sector, there will be more focus on the home markets. That means that I suspect that governments will look into their close industry and see how can the close industry meet the needs. And that has, of course, to do with securing that they have a stable supply chain. And the other part is, of course, also the financing and the fact that you want to maybe put your own companies in your home country in favor of other companies due to the economy and the factor of that. So I think we will see some tendency in that direction. So just to finalize, how do I see the defense sector to develop over the next few years? I agree with the previous speaker that the defense and security is such an important role in the society that even though the COVID-19 has hit hard on financials, etc., I don't think that the spending will be reduced. I think maybe it will even increase. Yes, there could be a local or drop in the short term, But on the longer term, I don't think we are going to be suffering from this. So we're looking really positive towards the future. And I would say one thing that we have learned as an SME is that we are a flexible and agile company by nature. It's in our DNA. And I would say that the COVID-19 has actually just proven that the way we work is just right on. So we're just going stronger out of this pandemic and looking forward to a brighter future together.
Thank you, Markus. Thank you. This is quite encouraging that our sector have to be remained in high level, and we have to support our customer regardless the disease or any other catastrophe what might come next. And I'm coming to you back with some questions later. But now I would like to introduce our third panelist, Oleg Yakovenko, Director of Strategy and Development at Ukoboromprom. And before Ukoboromprom joining, worked at numerous international companies of corporate sector. He also worked in the Ministry of Economics Development and Trade of Ukraine during 2015 to 2016 and was involved in corporate governance reform, export strategy and industrial policies. So Oleg, as I mentioned before, your situation is quite different. Your value chain is geographically different from Estonia, Sweden, Saudi Arabia, but also I know you are in big reforms in Ukoboromprom, where is more than 100 subsidiaries of companies. You have conflict war ongoing Eastern Ukraine. You have COVID, financial difficulties. How you can overcome all of this, or what is your plan to coming out from this difficult situation?
Yes, thank you, Stan. We are going strong, and we will survive, and we will become stronger. That's for sure. First, I would like to begin with the words of gratitude for the kind invitation to join this event. And indeed, we are facing right now a combined challenge on all these three, I would say, strategic challenges that we have, which is ongoing COVID situation. We have the ongoing military conflict with Russia in the east of our country. And of course, we embarked on the quite ambitious transformation plans for our defense sector, and specifically for our state concern. Now, let me just briefly explain who we are. And first of all, that we are the largest in Ukraine state-run association of defense industry enterprises. So we have in total 137 enterprises. Unfortunately, 21 are located at the temporary occupied territories. So we are talking 116 enterprises right now under our control. And our enterprises are involved in product development, production and maintenance within the 5 defense industrial sectors in aviation, in armored, in maritime systems, in radar and electronic warfare systems, missiles and ammunition. So now Ukoboromprom as well has in its structure 7 exporting companies, which are authorized by the government to support foreign trade operations with defense and special purpose products for the participant companies, as well as for other state and private defense products manufacturers in the country. Now we have 68,000 highly skilled and qualified and experienced employees, specialists in our company. And in last year, we have reached a turnover of approximately $1.4 billion. For the 9 months of this year, we are running quite strong. I have to say that we have reached a $0.9 billion turnover, which is a 9% increase compared to the last year. And we do expect that we will reach our annual targets till the end of the year. Now, as I mentioned, that we have embarked on the quite ambitious reform plan that our goal is to transform Ukoboromprom into effective, modern, an innovations-driven holding company, which can fully unlock the great potential, as we think, of Ukrainian defense industry, and become globally competitive and can be trusted by our foreign partners. Now, the key transformation streams that we are pursuing right now is the corporatization. Most of the state enterprises participants of Ukroboronprom will be corporatized and transformed either into state-owned joint stocked or limited liabilities companies. And there is right now a special draft law in the parliament, which we expect to be adopted early next year, which will create the legal environment for such a change. We also planning a restructuring. Some of the restructuring already started. We are moving right now 19 of our companies for privatization to the State Property Fund, and we expect more to come. And the most strong and the prospective enterprises will be combined into 6 sectoral corporations under the parent holding company. So now also we are building up an effective management system with the implementation of corporate governance based on the OECD principles, with establishment of fully functional and responsible supervisory board with independent members, with a proper disclosure and transparency. And we are also redesigning our operational model in line with the new holding and sectoral sub-holding structure. And of course, the important transformation stream, as for actually everybody in this world, in this modernization, we need to upgrade our product line, where innovation plays the key role, and we also need to modernize our production base. Now, obviously, these ambitious plans that we have for the reform were affected by the COVID quarantine measures and the crisis, but mainly on the timing. As we are quite dependent on the government for these reforms, as you mentioned, that of course the timing, sometimes we see right now the certain delays that we hope to catch up next year with ongoing our reform. So as for the general COVID situation, Ukraine is quite affected. We have a population of 40 million people, and at the moment we have almost 700,000 people who have got the virus, with 11,500 people who unfortunately died. And we, as elsewhere in European countries, in September, October, we have seen the second wave. And now the daily cases have risen to 15,000 cases a day, and it's stabilized recent days, but we still expect it to grow. So the government is considering right now a second lockdown. The first we had for basically 3 months in the spring, and now we are there is a possibility for a new lockdown closer to the end of the year and the Christmas time. Now so basically we are not out of the woods. We are still have work to do with ongoing COVID effects. So before we go to this post-COVID world, we still have to deal with the COVID today. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't think about what will be the effects in the future, but we do have ongoing case on our hands now. Since March 2020, enterprises of Ukroboronprom operate within the difficult conditions. Number of staff daily involved in production processes significantly reduced to the level of critically required. Remote operation mode have been applied that required additional funding to set up a digital infrastructure. Now, some of the enterprises and workshops were put down or transferred to the part-time operation mode due to the detection of COVID with some employees. Now, unfortunately, I have to say that if to look at our overall situation, is 2,700 people got infected, which is approximately 4% of our workforce. We had, unfortunately, 26 deaths. And now we have 700 cases ongoing. More than 2,000 people have recovered. So still, it's an ongoing process right now. In the recent couple of weeks, we saw that the rates of increase of the COVID cases has stabilized within the concern. Not to say about the country, but within the concern, it's okay. Now, our enterprises during these quarantine restrictions, we do not stand aside and rapidly responded to challenges of the coronavirus. Like we have started quite rapidly the production of disposable masks in-house. Probably you've seen that Antonov Airlines fleet is involved in global delivery of cargoes for the COVID-19 response. We've done some R&D and some production with the support of Swiss government of the lung ventilators on one of our enterprises. Now we restored the production of the medical oxygen. So also now, and despite all this coronavirus situation, we do comply with our obligations with the customers, keep working on the contract performance and conclude new deals for supply of military equipment and manufactured by our enterprises. Now, if to look at the disruptions that we have, that clearly the disruptions happen in production. However, in general, we have avoided a serious disruption, which allowed us to continue to perform our contractual obligations. Production schedules have been adjusted. There was clearly lockdown transportation restrictions. We had to introduce some part-time production schedules. There were some additional expenses related to the creating of the safe work environment, and the immediate mitigation measures have to be taken following the infection of the employees who are involved in production. Now, in the supply chain disruptions, I have to say that we also generally avoided supply chain disruptions specifically with the local our suppliers. More impact we have seen, of course, on the international trade flows restrictions, more in transportation area. However, I have to say that in general, the current COVID crisis on our supply chain had much smaller effect compared to the disruption that we had immediately after the start of the military conflict with Russia in 2014. Therefore, the big adjustment we had to face at that time, and in the recent 3-4 years, we have been able to do quite a lot of what we call import substitution, and with the local suppliers playing the key role in this process. And at the moment, still the local suppliers are the major providers for us for most of our products. Now, still the issue exists. Still, we are looking at the resilience issues with our supply chain. But we have a good experience which we can use and the agility and that we built in the last 5 years on conflict and war that we can use right now. Now, defense budget in Ukraine this year is record high, and in the moment it's intact. Next year there is uncertainty still with the state budget because it's not yet adopted. However, we expect that the parliament will there will not be a COVID-related reduction in the defense budget. So we saw some delays with the signage of the local defense contracts. However, it's only partially related to the COVID. It's more rather the internal issues. Now, I have to say that for Ukroboronprom, the local defense purchases represent only around 30% of our turnover, and more than 50% is export. So clearly for us, we have a significant vulnerability linked to the COVID impact on the global defense market. Now, we definitely have to say that the global defense market right now faces the largest crisis for the last decades. According to experts, there will be the defense trade rates will go down in 2020 and likely to be extended within 2021. As you surely know, that annual volume of global export of armaments and military equipment was gradually growing, maybe from the dawn of this new millennium, maybe with exception 2009, due to the economic crisis of 2008. But in general, we've seen the growth. Now, having analyzed the current situation and considering the leading experts' forecast, we see the downsizing of export volume in global markets can reach at least or even exceed 10%. In 2009, for example, it was 4.4%, so the impact is much bigger than in 2009. And according to the preliminary data, the reduction of armaments trade rates within 20-30% nowadays has become a sustainable trend in the neighboring with Ukraine countries, which are in a much better financial in economic conditions than Ukraine. We suffered, of course, our defense industry export has suffered from pandemic effects immediately almost. There were restrictions for air and ground travel, made it practically impossible for us regular contacts with our business partners, and caused cancellation of the most international exhibitions and events. And now the abolition of exhibition, official visits, intergovernmental commissions, business negotiation deprived us of the considerable marketing tool and grounds for establishing contacts and setting up dialogues with potential partners. There were cancellations of the pre-scheduled negotiations and meetings. So we also faced some problems with performance of contractual commitments. It was impossible in some cases to handle acceptance and delivery operations, shipments of products. So we managed to avoid the serious, major, significant reductions and kept the balanced export in-house corporate armaments export rates. However, in the 9 months of this global coronavirus pandemic, our exports went down 30% compared to 2019. We succeeded to work in these conditions, but and really hope that we'll increase annual exports rates. Now, in 2020, we exported military equipment and armaments and services to 50 foreign countries. Presently, our main partners are on Asia Pacific. It's 56% of our exports, but the European is growing. Share now it's 19% of our sales in Europe, which is up from 3% in 2013. So now the lessons, the adaptation that we have. That I would agree with Markus that we should not only look at the crisis as look at the positive, let's say, effects on that and the range of the new opportunities that it creates. So the crisis served as a catalyst. It's I would say, the positive disruptor in some cases. We have to reconsider the involvement and effectiveness of the employees and productivity when we see that, for example, we send the 1/3 of the workforce for the quarantine, but the factory continue working at the same rate. So you ask a question on the effectiveness. So, and we also facilitated us to take some decisions for involvement, improvements of the structures and the managerial processes. Now, clearly, it's a catalyst for digitalization. So we learned how to exploit new remote IT applications, tools, arrange secured communication, enhance cybersecurity of our enterprises, and of course, reconsidering planning of business and production process continuity. You know, that's most important. Yes.
Oleg, I have one short question to you. When you see, just very short answer, when you see this period of stabilization for you, is it next year, 2022, 2023?
No, again, if we see the stabilization for the exports, clearly we don't know yet when the crisis will end next year, because we do have all right now the vaccine hopes that the vaccines will arrive sometimes next year, but we do expect still at least for half a year next year, there will be the negative effect. So the export will be affected. Now, for the local production, I don't think there will be such a big impact. So for exports, yes. So the recovery, the normal recovery, I would expect for 2022, 2023. So now yes.
Yeah, thank you. This is understood. Just looking the some opinions from U.S. Europe company CEOs. One suggestion even have been for the next year that accounting the time back, like making the next year plan, should make the plan for the COVID exit period 2022, and from this take 2021 as transition year. So maybe the hope for next year is not so high, but to overcome this, we should look just further to 2022, 2023. So this,
yes,
I understand.
Well, probably looking at the timing on because you of course, especially in exports, you build your order portfolio, and given the time lag that you need to go through all the process, clearly that just the timing will require us to expect the recovery in actual production volumes and the export rates sometimes in 22.
Thank you.
So now also I have to say that look at let's see on the post-COVID vision, that still this looking at the big picture, this crisis still has a limited in time nature. We are talking, even if we're talking about the 2022, it's just on the big scale. It's in 1 year. So that the rate of recovery will depend also on the financial conditions of the partnering countries. Some of them in medium term will downsize the defense expenses, abolish programs of re-equipment and cut. However, I don't think that there will be one uniform reaction. Countries will react in different ways. Some countries reconsider their priorities in procurement of armaments, and some of them may change the terms of tenders, and some of them in reverse may speed up the procurement. So we have to look at the very specific cases rather than a uniform reaction across the different countries. Now nowadays we closely monitor the current trends which are rising in importing countries, and we learn how to quickly respond to any change in the market condition. That's we have to increase our response rate as much as possible. Now, what also clear that the COVID-19 crisis revealed also the urgency of the determining the secured communication systems between the partners, specifically in this field of international military technical cooperation. That's very important vulnerability, I have to say, that exposed. We have to look into that. Supply chain vulnerabilities that stand in the documents that shared with us before the conference, again, raise this issue of the resilience of supply chain. It will remain. And of course, the previous speakers were talking about the one crucial aspect, this trend made in my country is getting more demanded. So clearly, many countries already started to move in the direction of development of their own defense industries and maximum use of their national scientific industrial this potential. And this trend will definitely accelerate, and the COVID crisis is a catalyst for already existing trend. And the same for digitalization. Digitalization is on all this, drawing on the strategic plans. We all talk about the digitalization, but now we clearly see how crisis accelerated this trend. And especially we have to look at this marketing process, which is exhibitions, the digitalization of the samples, that we can new ways to communicate to the customers without moving the physical products.
Thank you, Oleg.
So
Oleg.
To summarize, yes.
Yeah. Please
yes,
summarize,
please.
and we're moving ahead with the questions.
Yes. That clearly that we will overcome this crisis, and the lucky survivors. I have to say that we are going to transfer to the future generations not only the interesting and useful experience to work within such a challenging environment, but also a vast heritage, I have to say, of the technological mechanisms and up-to-date skills for effective collaboration. So that's for sure that will be our what we will move further, and we will be stronger, I'm sure, we'll be more agile, and we'll be more adaptive. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Oleg. I'm very sure that if you are overcoming all these three different crises, defense industry, what is developing through the crisis, should be strongest in the world. So with these limited resources, you can make only critically important steps. There is no other way. Thank you. We have some short time, about few questions. One, what also Mr. Mansour highlighted, own IP, diversified revenue, and during current period or last 12 months, different defense industry sectors have different hit, doing better, like state and local, C4 ISR, diversified IT, government services, defense technology, and under the harder pressure, definitely commercial aerospace, space satellites, multi-platform contractors. So my question is that, do you see any change in your product selection or portfolio? Maybe Mr. Mansour, you can start.
I think I have to say this is a continuous effort to monitor this all the time. However, we are by nature we're a very diversified company. So we have different business units serving different sectors. We have an ICT business unit. We have a security business unit covering both physical and cyber security. And within our defense industry, we are diversified into avionics, electronics, C4I, and EW. I think we are monitoring. The key thing here is what are the customer demand, what is the upcoming requirement, and also what is the strategic for the country in terms of technology. So this is our main guidelines. In Saudi Arabia, we have a government authority called GAMI, General Authority for Military Industry, and they are basically the regulator for this industry, and also the localization responsible for the localization, and they have identified already some technology that they want to grow in the country. So yes, I can see us looking at different business line, different products within the same business line that I think we have today, but definitely different products and services. And again, I just want to say that the emphasis is really in the customer requirement and what's strategic for the country.
Thank you. Markus, we discussed with you earlier about also some management and leadership questions after COVID period, and some company CEOs have said, for example, that look what we have achieved during this difficult period. Some developments have been achieved in 2-3 months, but we have planned to do in next 2-3 years. Some CEOs say that we are not going back to where we were before, and some CEOs think that if this period is over, we're coming back to the old roots. Markus, what is your view? Is there any change in your leadership, management behavior, or what is your atmosphere there?
Yeah, I would say again, I mean, we are a reasonably small company, and in this company we are like a family. And to be honest, I think I mentioned before, we just feel that the COVID-19 has just reflected that we are working in a really agile and flexible way, and I think it's just given us proof that the way we work is the right way, and we're just motivated by that fact. So I don't foresee any big changes in the way we manage the company or how we do things. I shouldn't say it's business as usual, because of course we've learned that COVID-19 has a big impact, and we have to reflect that in the future. But I would say we are geared up to meet those kind of crises for the future.
Thank you. Let's say one management question is also how board acts in crisis. Maybe we can open shortly the board role during the COVID period. There have been some observations that COVID has common plane, more closer to the management. Usually board is a little bit away from daily management. Markus, how you see your board role? Is it different during the crisis, or is it remain same?
In fact, in our specific example, there hasn't been much board intervention during this crisis. So I have difficulties to ask, but we're also a small company. So in this case, we have not been involved in that kind of discussions. I don't know how it is with the other speakers here, if they have a different view on that.
Yeah, no, I think there is also a question at different sectors. Some sectors who are on the bigger hit, they definitely struggle more, and they are in the bigger pain. What is, Mr. Mansour, your view about board role during the crisis period?
Well, I think it is a little bit different. I mean, and this is mutual. I mean, the management and the board wanted both to engage to make sure that we are going the right direction. So I have seen some more regular reporting, for example, on revenues and financials, but nothing major. But I think that the board role is important, of course, on all the situations, but specifically in a situation like this, where they have to steer the strategy, making sure that you're going with the right strategy. How can we improve? How can we recover? So I can see generally this role is done by the board, in addition to also communication at high level communication, whether it's with the government, with customers, with major partners. So I think that is unexpected from a board generally.
Understood. Hey, thank you, gentlemen. I will conclude our board here. What I strongly believe, what I have seen during my personal military operations, that difficulties are uniting people. And if we can travel, if we can meet each other, we should keep up our communications to have the dialogue. Maybe we need even much more communication. We need to talk with each other much more than before, to make sure that all the sales, marketing, supply chains, value chains are working well. I think this discussion have been very valuable, especially because of our very different geography. Unfortunately, we see that we all are under some pressure, and we will overcome this crisis together, and looking much more bright future, looking the period 2022, period 2023. So I hope your company is surviving well. Some have said that bigger companies will win bigger here in this situation. Hope also that our smaller companies coming out from this difficult period. But as I've said, that for defense industry or for military, nothing is better than some small crisis somewhere, and this will develop and encouraging us for the future. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all our guests, and then we're going to the next pause.